So long as it's not. Sometimes you have to.
You know, he's leaving his job and he's on fire.
So, we're a little weird. The owl is here, but everyone is loud. Okay. So the cow can hear.
No problem.
The magic, I think, will pay. Okay. And we're ready.
Okay. So should I,
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the box.
I'll just, okay, shall we get started? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Social Services Commission. Roll call, we take roll call here, everyone. Should everyone just say their names?
I think we don't usually do roll call.
Yeah, I didn't think we did. Okay, well, we have quorum.
Yeah, we do.
5 people, we're good. No council liaison here today, that
Not yet.
are they coming? Okay.
I wish we were sitting here.
Did everyone have a chance to review the agenda? Oh, we're gonna note this, sorry, this is my first time, so we're gonna
It's all good.
go in order of
Yeah.
the proceedings. It is 7:09. We're starting meeting time. Everyone, let's review the agenda. Does anyone have any edits or additions they want to make from?
All right, I move to approve the agenda as written.
Actually, wait,
Oh,
I'm so sorry, I have a question. I'm
Take
wondering,
that back.
we got an additional piece here about City of Davis faith-based collaborative safe harbor.
That's just for the commissioners.
We're
Oh,
not
so
gonna
that's
discuss
not
it.
on the agenda?
It's an announcement.
Understood, okay, I
It's
just
just
wanted,
for
thank you for clarifying. Then I'm also good with the agenda, sorry.
Okay, so I move to approve the agenda as written.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay,
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. And then any opposed?
Any opposed?
There you go.
Seeing as there's no
First vote.
opposition, we have an approved agenda. Do we need to approve last week's minutes? Or last
Yeah,
month's
we can do
minutes?
this first.
This first.
Yeah, just follow the agenda. It's easy.
Okay, brief announcements from staff.
Staff has no announcements right now. Thank you.
Any announcements from commissioners?
Nope.
No.
Should we say that Tracy?
Yes, you can just say that she's.
Okay, Tracy
Lichtenberg.
Lichtenberg has stepped down from the Social Services Commission as of a couple weeks ago.
We're sad to lose her.
Yes.
That officially makes Commissioner Ringer
You're on
now
there.
a commissioner.
Maybe she'll not be an alternate.
And the council liaison's not here, so.
I saw that Gloria's name is over there. Is she our liaison or is that is that from a different meeting?
She is now the liaison.
Okay.
Oh.
And Mayor Viper is the the alternate.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, so you don't take change every year.
Okay. Well, no comments on the
Other,
announcements or so forth. So.
no public comments?
We'll do public comments. Oh, sorry, folks. Yes.
Are there any-
want to comment on item 6? We would comment now?
You comment at item 6.
Okay.
Okay, so at this time, if any member of the public wants to step forward to address the commission for any matters not listed on the agenda, you can do that now. Okay, each item scheduled for action or discussion that is on the agenda will have a separate separate opportunity to have comment. And speakers are limited to no more than 3 minutes, and we ask that you please state your name for the record. All right, seeing as there are no public comments, we'll move on. Consent calendar. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Are there any comments or edits? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have an approved minutes from last meeting. All right, action items. Down payment assistance ordinance.
Coming up here to this very imposing looking podium. So good evening, commissioners. For the couple of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly Stackowitz. I'm the assistant city manager. And what we're doing tonight is giving you a quick update on some council action that happened at the last council meeting, so the 21st of January. Sorry, do you need
Yeah, that, if you could.
Do we have amplification? I have mine, like, another set of headphones. Would you guys mind if I just hold on a second until they
Yeah,
have the
no,
headphones?
Do we have a microphone or no?
No.
No, we don't.
No, okay, but we have, very good.
Yeah.
There are listening devices, but this room just echoes, so it's not the best. Ironically,
Ironically, yeah.
senior center.
Because there are other commissions that have meetings here, right?
We have tried to move all of the commission meetings over to the conference room or the chambers room
That makes sense.
for kind of this reason, so we don't have a setup that's janky. It's harder for people to hear in here. I will wait just a second.
No worries.
Sure.
No.
Anyone want to talk?
You come prepared? Okay. Oh, it's waiting. Okay. I will do my best to speak clearly and loudly, but let me know if I need to change anything. So at the council's last meeting, they introduced an ordinance that provides a framework for a down payment assistance program or programs. This is something that this particular commission several years ago spent a lot of time talking about. And so we wanted to come back to this commission, give you an update on what council has done, and tell you what they asked for your input and your role to be. So down payment assistance is exactly what it sounds like. It provides assistance in the form of a down payment or portion of a down payment for an income qualified household. So it's low or moderate income households to be able to get into a unit. There is no mention made of the price of the unit or specifics about what the down payment assistance amount should actually be. There are references to the standard for FHA, which provides sort of down payments assistance guidelines overall. The framework, it was very intentionally left broad so that it is actually a framework. It's not a program in and of itself. The idea behind that was that the program guidelines, which would provide specificity, would come later via a resolution. And a resolution is just an easier thing for a council to update or to modify as they need to over time compared to an ordinance. It's easier and quicker. And the program guidelines would provide the details as to what a down payment assistance program would look like in the city. So maybe that would be a program that is funded fully by the city. Maybe it would be a program that is via a grant or grants that the city received from outside sources, state, federal, other places. Maybe it would be a combination of those kinds of things. So the ordinance still requires a second reading, which will happen on the consent calendar. It should be pro forma at the next council meeting. But we wanted to take the opportunity to come now to be able to tell you that council did introduce this. And with that, they also gave some direction and request for assistance from this group. So the council has a subcommittee, which is the fiscal subcommittee, and they asked that particular subcommittee to take this framework and try to flesh it out a bit, and to come back to the full council with additional details that from their work. They specifically said that they wanted things to go to this commission and then our fiscal commission for two different purposes. For this commission, they're looking for input regarding the programmatic features, ideas, concerns, questions, any sort of input that you might have as a commission related to the programmatic features of a down payment assistance program. From the fiscal commission, they're looking for feedback on prioritization in terms of dollars and amounts and things like that. Right now, there are no dollars that are allocated from the city to this framework. So that would come with the actual program. They are interested in what this commission, the council is interested in what this commission thinks in terms of the wide spectrum of different social service programs, housing programs, etc., where and how you think this fits in to that spectrum. So they're looking for feedback from you on all of this. What we thought would make the most sense at this point, first, it actually does need the second reading and then has 30 days to go into effect, but what we would like from, what we thought would make the most sense at this point for this commission is for you to appoint a subcommittee, because then 2 or 3 of you can work outside of the confines of the actual meetings, do some research, gather questions, information, come back and have that and have a fuller, richer conversation at the commission level when you're ready to do that. You can also then work with the council subcommittee so that if they have very specific questions, which I don't know what those questions would be at this point, that's kind of up to them. That subcommittee is Donna Neville and Bapu Vaila. So mayor and vice mayor right now, and Mayor Vaila used to be a member of this commission, so he's very familiar with the commission and the work that it does. So I am happy to answer any questions as I can, and then the recommendation would be, or the suggestion would be that you guys appoint a subcommittee if you're so inclined, and we can do all of the connections with the council subcommittee. So that's it for me. If there's any questions for clarification, or then I'll sit down for public comment.
Discuss post-public comment.
Okay, is there any public comment?
Self-organized here. Just feels so different, sorry. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Georgina Valencia, for the record. I'm here tonight excited because you're going to be talking about down payment assistance, and I've been advocating for this program for a very long time, as Kelly knows and some of you know. I wanted to share just a little bit of history. Kelly already alluded to it, but about 2 years ago, as I'll just say a citizen in Davis, I presented some work that myself and several colleagues, I'm a real estate broker here, I've done a lot of work in affordable for sale housing, both in Davis and other communities. And we actually developed some ideas that could be a good, I'll say, at least point of reference, if you will, on a down payment assistance program. We're calling it First Time Homebuyer Program. So it was presented to this commission a couple of years ago, 7-0 mandate from you all to send it to council, and here it is finally coming back a few years later. So again, very excited. So I'll give this to staff, and as I said, it's got references in it as you're looking for information about various programs. I offer myself too if you wanted someone to chat with and get some ideas. I have a lot of familiarity both on a professional and a personal level. The other thing that I love what Kelly said about a frame of reference. The down payment assistance and housing trust fund are actually referenced in our, in our housing element, our current housing element. And I made a copy of just the housing trust fund draft document that's in our housing element, because it actually speaks to various needs groups that could be served by the housing trust fund. It speaks to the various places you could go to look for funding to support the housing trust fund, which in turn would be where your monies would come for program like down payment assistance. So my ask of you, I guess, is to consider making a recommendation to council as one funding source would be the money coming from Measure Q, and $1 million I think would be a good start for seed money for the housing trust fund and in turn the down payment assistance program. The other recommendation is actually in our housing policy, I think it's section 18.01, the policy talks about funding sources being private sources. It's a really vague term, and I think it should be more specific, so it would help us to actually go out and seek funds. Something like using the words private grants, endowments, donations, and gifts as opposed to private sources. So those are my two, I'll say asks of you to make possible recommendations to council. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name's Barbara Clutter, and I'm co-chair of Interfaith Housing Justice Davis, and we spoke with you just last month. So, as you know, we're very supportive of the down payment assistance program, particularly as it applies to the first-time home buyers. And you'll be discussing this later, and we really hope that you'll see this as part of the continuum to support all the housing needs in Davis, the unhoused, the renters, and buyers. We feel like it's really important that the low to moderate income folks have a chance to get into the housing market and begin to build that generational wealth and have the stability of being owners instead of renters. As Georgina said, we'd love for you to suggest that $1 million go into the Housing Trust Fund to support this program, because I think that amount would, we'll need the fiscal people to really flesh it out, but kind of when we've looked at that, as we see people getting into it and then money from when they sell their house and pay it back into the Housing Trust Fund, that it goes on and maintains itself, and that we see as a key feature of it, because kind of once it's funded and gets off and rolling, then it'll sustain itself and it'll probably attract other funds. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none.
Can't see you, so I'm gonna back up to stand.
Sure, of course.
Kelly, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the public commenters. I have a question about the timing of this. I know that down payment assistance is part of the upcoming Burge Farms development as one of the options that they're considering. If this framework and potential update to the municipal code happens in a timely fashion, would that program fall under this?
It could, yes. It depends on what the details of their program end up being, but
Right.
yes. So this program is intended for income qualified households.
Right.
So that would be, something that would have to be a part of whatever was, proposed or approved for that particular development.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And you mentioned may have to guess on this. What would the timing have to be for completion of this in order for that project to fall under it? Because they've already submitted their paperwork, they're already in the development process. They're already in the development process, right? We're through they're receiving comments on the EAR right now. And one of the elements of the project is a down payment assistance program that is income-based. But it's up for a Measure J vote, right? So I am curious if you have a best guess.
Yeah, so I think, let's try to see if I can play this out. So the project itself, council has to approve putting the project onto the ballot.
Right.
So say that would happen in November,
Right.
surmising. And if the voters approve the project, then it goes forward. It has to have what are called baseline features. So those baseline features are kind of bullet points. They're not necessarily all completely drawn out in terms of details. So one of those baseline features could be, and this is where I'm getting into the world of the hypothetical, so please
Right.
understand that.
Understood.
Could be a down payment assistance program. If the basics were such that it fit into this metric, meaning it was income qualified and some of the other basic requirements that they would want to adhere to, then we would fit it into the program or the programs. That's why I said it could be program or programs, because you might have one that is particular for a specific development. You might have a broader one that's citywide. You might have one that is from grant funding, another that is funded through the trust fund. There are different ways to look at it and to get to it. The ordinance itself simply provides the framework. So there is a lot of breadth within that to do the specificity that we want for a particular program. I'm kind of going in circles here, but
That
short
makes
answer
sense.
is yes.
Okay,
Does that help?
it does.
Okay.
And if I could say back to you to check my understanding, by November, it has to have certain baseline features set before it goes out to voters, right? So the framework already is there, but the guidelines for different kinds of programs are not yet set,
Correct.
right?
So
So,
let me just, one
Okay.
caveat, the framework will be there as soon as they've had second reading in 30 days.
of
So
course, understood,
soon.
understood, right. So there's still room for correction, changes, revision,
And
potentially.
then the program guidelines, whether it's one set of guidelines or if we have multiple sets of guidelines
Right.
or different chapters within the guidelines, those can come and be modified later.
Okay, all right, but it sounds like, if we wanted it to be applicable to that project, it would have to happen before that project goes up for a vote, potentially.
When you say it, what do you mean by the
The
it?
program guidelines, to have them be something that could apply to the down payment assistance.
Not
potentially.
not necessarily. If they said that they wanted to, if they had the baseline feature that there will be a income qualifying or income-based down payment assistance program for low moderate income households, the rest of the details could be worked out
Okay,
beyond that.
that's good, that's good.
So,
That's my understanding, right now, today, that's still part of the plan for Village Farms, so that bodes well.
all hypothetical conversations.
All hypothetical, understood. Caveat, take it with a
Yeah.
grain, but, okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Where is Village Farms?
Village Farms is a proposed development on the north side of Corral. It's a peripheral development next to the cannery.
Oh, the one in the corner.
Yep,
Yep. okay.
1,800 units, at 20% affordable was the last that I heard, but there's some distinction there between 15% and another 5%, 15, like what the distinctions are in the income, so, yes.
And that's up for vote.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, without getting too far into that topic, the council has to decide whether they want to send it to the ballot or not, which they can't do until a number of steps are completed.
Thank you. That answers my question.
I have a quick question. So as Commissioner Valencia mentioned, is this a first-time homebuyer program or is it just an income? So it's a first-time and
So
income?
embedded in the ordinance is a reference to qualifications. So in addition to being income qualified, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, home buyers have to meet the definition for first-time home buyer. So, which, as this group may recall, you guys had a hand in helping to get that into the that definition into the city's municipal code not too long ago. I'd have to ask Georgina when exactly it was. She had a hand in it too.
That was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, it came in, it was written in the policy, not this January, but last January.
And so I know we've had
Right,
discussions, so we've had discussions about the definition for first-time home buyer. For example, like someone who got divorced, would they qualify? I mean, if they had bought with their partner and then they were seeking to buy.
They
and then
could,
would-
they had
could.
basically a life-changing event. It goes by
Okay.
the HUD definition
Okay,
of
good,
first-time
perfect.
home buyer. So
That's good.
it is a person or a household that's never owned a property before or
Mhm.
meets other certain criteria.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
I've got, a comment. So yeah, I wanted to share some numbers that I was looking at related to this and ask some questions around it. So particularly around the requirement that households that qualify for it are either low or moderate income, level. I had to remind myself what the value of that is like in Davis, and so I looked up the median income AMI for Davis is 113,000. I was just curious to look at what kind of housing would be available and affordable for households that qualify as low-income households and moderate-income households. And maybe some of you have done this, looked at this already, and so I'm happy to be inform more about other ways that you guys have sliced these numbers. But the median income is 113,000, and low-income household threshold is 80%. Is that correct? 80% of households.
It's 80% of AMI.
Yeah, sorry, 80% of the AMI, which is $90,000 a year. Looking at the take-home pay, if you take taxes out, take-home pay for this salary is about $5,500 a month. I know the Department of Housing and Urban Development considers households that spend more than 30% of their income on housing cost burdened. I know a lot of households do spend more than 30%. I know, my wife and I are renters. I think last year when we were just on one income, we were spending, I think, about almost 50% of our income on our housing. So we would qualify as cost burden, and even I think there's another level of extremely cost burden if you're spending 50% of your income on housing. Looking at those numbers, I think I used 33% instead of 30% in doing this calculation, so that's a little bit off. These numbers I was just looking up last night, so again, happy to be countered, but the number, if you take the 30% of this take $5,500, that number to spend on housing is $1,843. When you look at the housing in Davis, being able to, I looked for using a mortgage calculator. I tried to find the price of a home that would give a mortgage plus property tax plus insurance that was around $1,800 a month, and the cost of a house that would do that with the current interest rates and with 20% down payment was $270,000 value home, which there are some available in Davis, but I've seen not very many. So I think someone else maybe brought this up, a different commissioner brought this up at the last meeting. It's like, are there homes that are going to be available that people can afford for this program? I'm very supportive, obviously, of shoring up the housing continuum and providing financial support and housing support to people all across the housing spectrum. But I worry that either there won't be enough homes and interest in this program, or we might be, we might be incentivizing people to getting into houses that are, that are expensive. And so it made me think about, lots of things. It feels like we also need much more affordable housing in Davis in conjunction with down payment assistance program to really meet the needs of moderate and low-income households. I don't know. I left this concerned, confused. Does any fellow commissioners have thoughts on this, or happy to hear thoughts from anyone in the public or you, Kelly, on concerns around how successful this program will be in supporting people in long-term financial stability.
Do you want me to address anything, or do you have questions?
Anyone else have any comments? I don't have any questions.
I mean, if I'm allowed as the public, I'd be happy to make some comments.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
want to overstep my
I don't
bounds.
know. Can we take more public comment from her?
I can do it as a planning commissioner.
I don't know if we, I'm not sure if that's the,
Okay, Kelly is making a face.
Sorry, that's just my face.
No. I mean, it's probably, is it okay or no, or are we completely circumventing the rules?
Public comment has been concluded, so
Okay.
you're not supposed to, but
Yeah.
it's the will of the commission. Let me just address a couple of the
Sure.
things that you said, and then you guys can
Okay.
decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything that you said.
Yeah.
And the down payment assistance framework and future programs, they are not in and of themselves a panacea. They will not
Right.
solve
Yeah.
our housing problems.
Yes.
Anything that we're going to do to address housing in Davis and the affordability of it is going to require a multitude of things. This is one of them. And it is for really one particular segment of the housing spectrum. So it has the potential to do good things for that one segment.
Yeah.
That does not mean that we should take our foot off the gas pedal,
Sure.
or bike pedal maybe would be a better analogy, for all of the other things that we need to do for different levels of affordability and for different types of housing. So we do have a small number, about 125 homes in the city that are price restricted units that are more in line with the pricing that you've mentioned, but that's the entire city, and it's only 125. So that's a really small percentage, and it's great for the households who are able to get into those units, but we need more units with, from a variety of price points. We will follow basically the HUD guidelines, Housing and Urban Development guidelines for assets. So these households that were income qualifying are also allowed to have a certain amount in assets. Sometimes they're putting those assets toward offsetting the overall cost of the unit, which can bring that monthly price down and sometimes then not require mortgage insurance, etc. There are also, depending on the amount of the down payment assistance, there's a very wide variety in amounts that different programs that are currently in existence and all over the place that they offer. So while it's usually between 3 and 5% of the overall down payment, of the overall purchase price, the down payment assistance program could be a much higher number. So that may be something that, as a commission, you're interested in. I can't answer that for you. So there are different ways to make it successful, but I just want to be clear that it's one of many.
Yeah.
So that helps at all.
Thank you. Yeah, that does help. I think my ask to the subcommittee and to fellow commissioners and to the council as well is that just we be realistic with the numbers about exactly that. You said, yeah, can help and will help, you know, a very specific subset of people, as long as we're realistic about who that is, particularly with these income bands. Like, is this feasible for, you know, low-income households? Will they, you know, qualify? Will they participate in this program? Or will it be, you know, just on the high end of moderate income households, which is okay, we need to support them too, but as long as we're honest with ourselves and with the numbers of who's going to support and who's going to participate in these programs, and then we don't, you know, leave out the other groups in terms of our support, and we're thinking about prioritizing it with our programs.
Okay. Can I ask another? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everything you just said, and I don't disagree with any of it. And I think we have struggled so many times, whether it's when we're looking at our CDBG dollars, or when we're talking about what the percentage should be in an ordinance, of do we push forward on all of the avenues that we need to simultaneously to address the housing crisis, or do we pick the highest leverage spots? And what's hard about this one is that our public commentator, Georgina Valencia, mentioned, like, oh, should we pursue Measure Q dollars, right? We know that that's a constrained amount of money. And how can we best use those dollars to push forward the priorities of the city? I appreciate the tip about getting better definition around what private funds mean and what these different pathways could be for funding these different programs, because we're in such an environment constrained resources and we have to expand. I think we do need to push forward on expanding permanent supportive housing. We do need to push forward on how much we have access to emergency shelter and temporary shelters, right? But that doesn't mean that we therefore maybe don't think about any guidelines for down payment systems. Doesn't mean we have to fund it right now. I think we're going to be making some of those resource decisions of where can we have the greatest or most effective impact. And that'll be not just through this commission, but many other layers of the system. So I don't think we should hold back from trying to have the best guidelines we can have for this, because it will positively impact, albeit a smaller group, as long as we keep our eye on the ball in the entire continuum. And at points, we're going to have to make different choices on where we put the resources. On that note about the different resources, at one time on this commission, we talked about the rental resources program and the fees. And I was wondering if there's any universe where rental resource fees could be used as a funding source into the Housing Trust Fund, or if it has to stay entirely in the office. And you've described this before, but I'm curious if that's an area we could look at.
So a fee has to underwrite whatever service it's providing.
Okay.
So otherwise it's a tax.
Right.
So we have to be able to show that the fee that we're charging is paying for whatever it is we're charging it for. So if you think about it like a recreation program or something, if you're charging a fee of $20, then the program, the cost to have that program itself for that particular class should be no more than $20. Sorry, I rephrase that. You cannot pay more than $20. The program can cost more, but you can't charge more.
Okay.
So
So you could.
rental resource would be a tough one to try to make that nexus for renter, so landlords paying for home ownership. That would require some legal,
Interesting.
that would require a conversation
No, I
with the
hear
city
you. I
attorney.
hear you. I'm just trying to think of how
Nope.
many
Fair question.
currently not tapped funding sources within our community regionally do we need to pursue to have programs like this and the other programs that are just listed that we simultaneously need to fund, get the funding that they need. Okay, thank you.
Is that potentially something that subcommittee could look into?
Could be. Should we get to the subcommittee part of the conversation?
Yeah. So would anyone like to make a motion to to form a subcommittee to research and provide input regarding the development of down payment assistance program guidelines and policies, pending feedback from the council fiscal subcommittee?
So I have a question. So this is blank slate starting with the guidelines, or are there some guidelines?
So the ordinance provides some
There's some,
guidelines.
okay.
And then, I think, I think it would be helpful, should you guys appoint a subcommittee, I think it would be helpful to look and see what else is out there. You heard a few minutes ago that there's somebody in the room who's done a lot of that research, and you might be interested in availing yourself of that if she's willing to share, which I'm guessing she would. I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but I'm assuming that she's nodding, or not frowning at me.
Talking about me.
Yeah,
I don't hear it.
just that you have collected a lot of research, and I'm sure
A lot.
I'm sure that you'd be willing to share it if asked.
And I left some of it for staff. Yes, absolutely. More than happy. Thank you.
And Kelly's council said that they're asking 2 commissions to look at this subject. So you guys will be looking at one piece of a potential first-time homebuyer program, and the fiscal subcommittee will be looking at another piece. So it might be a good idea for the subcommittee to get feedback from the council subcommittee on exactly where they want you to be.
All right.
And one last question, have we done a feasibility study, or would that be like the fiscal commission, maybe looking at that?
A fiscal feasibility study,
Yeah.
that would be part of what the fiscal commission and
I'm not volunteering for that.
No, so, this commission would, the council's interested in the programmatic aspects,
Gotcha.
which
Okay,
can
gotcha.
include the, what income levels are we talking about? You know, what does this mean? What does it actually look like? So there's some numbers there.
Great. Well, I guess I can make a motion to form a subcommittee for this purpose. Is anyone interested? I think we said we need 2 people.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is this to identify the members of the subcommittee?
So
or
first,
establish?
I'm going to make a motion to form a subcommittee. Anyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Everyone is in favor.
Did we get a second?
Oh,
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay. So it looks like we're going to form a subcommittee. Is anyone in particular here interested in that? In participating in that?
Do we have a time frame?
Yeah.
Sorry, like, I'm just.
No, a fair question. Not specifically, council didn't say bring this back by the 15th of March, but
Okay.
this is something that the sooner that there's information in place, the better, the more we can go on to other things that we need to go on to.
But this is all pending feedback from council,
Yes.
so. Okay. I'd be on it.
Okay.
That's what I.
Great. Do we want 2 people? Is
We
that
can have 3, we can have up to 3.
2 or 3? Is anyone else?
Already on
want to
it.
Okay,
participate?
busy with another.
Okay.
Do
So
you only have 6 members right now?
Yeah. No, we've got 7. And we're missing 2 commissioners.
So we could add one of the missing commissioners later if they so wish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
What happens
so
if you
we'll
don't come to a meeting?
right.
Great, we'll have Rachel, Commissioner Cook, and Commissioner Brown Blake. And then we can open it up to Judy and just see if they want to.
Do we have to vote on that?
On the numbers? No.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, we have a subcommittee for researching the down payment system.
Thank you. I'm up next, I just did this.
Just say.
Okay, next item of discussion, Police Accountability Commission.
Let me introduce Don Sherman. Don is a member of the Police Accountability Commission, and so he's going to provide a brief overview of what in the heck it is that we're doing on February 12th.
Right. The Police Accountability Commission is expected by the City Council to provide at least one public forum per year. So each year we take up a variety of suggested topics and we put together an opportunity for the public to attend and participate in the process, which is the Police Accountability Commission's mandate to advise City Council on police relationships with the public. And out of that comes a realization that many calls that go into the police department, either from 911 or directly to the police department, could and would most effectively be helpful to the caller if they went directly to a variety of services that are provided by different organizations in the county. So our program on February 12th is called Who You Gonna Call? That's the theme, which is to provide this kind of form. So the format that we have proposed within our own organization and now are offering to you to help us with this if you would like to participate. Entirely voluntary on the part of your commission. You have no obligation whatever, but because we're dealing with a forum on this topic of social services in the city and in the county, we feel that you might be interested in helping with it, participating to whatever degree you like. So we only have a couple of weeks, but if there is interest here in the program, and I can answer your questions about the specifics of how we're thinking of setting it up, but even there, we're open to your suggestions. So I would toss the ball back to you to help me know what you'd like to know, what questions come to your mind, and I'll try to help you. I'll try to help you decide if you want to join us in this effort.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or any comments?
You should go public comment first.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment? Is there any public comment about this? Okay, seeing no public comment, discussion, does anyone have anything they'd like to ask?
I first want to say thank you for setting up this event. I think this will be really helpful for our community. We know that there are, you can look at Nextdoor, you can look at Facebook, you can talk to your neighbors and hear confusion about who you're going to call if there's an issue, especially the difference between calling 911 and accessing the non-emergency number. So I think it's wonderful that this Accountability Commission is doing this, and I don't want to speak for the other commission members, that opportunities to partner like this are a good thing. And so thank you for coming, and I wish, of course, that we were doing more of this and earlier. Right. We didn't have just 2 weeks, and we could be of more service to you in achieving this. So I have other questions, but if someone else wants to jump on the train on that.
Maybe I could stimulate the conversation a little bit by giving you a couple of details of what we feel we want to do on the 12th. Each of about a half dozen services will be attending. Each of them will give a brief talk, 5 minutes or so, to explain what their function is, and perhaps, if they would like, illustrate it with an example, a case history story or something, where they were able to step in and help the people find, either from them or from a referral, the help that they need. We also expect that this will have some positive impact at the police department by reducing the number of calls that they go out on that they don't know till they get there, but they find when they arrive at the scene that whatever the issue is more appropriately handled by someone other than the police department. That does happen sometimes, so we might be able to reduce that interference with people getting the service they want. The format we thought about was having a table chaired by each of the organizations. After they give their little 5 minutes or so talk, they would chair a table, and the public is invited to circulate among the tables if they like, or spend the entire time that remains with one service, if that's their preference. But they can then be these follow-up. So we feel that's more productive than firing questions from the audience to each presenter as they finish their presentation. That would just make everyone available and let the people circulate and bring up whatever questions they might have. So that's about all I can tell you about it. Unless you have questions, I'll try and answer them. But that's about as far as we've gone. Dana and Kelly have been very helpful in lining up the various services that will be presented. And you are again invited to take any part in this, helping us to promote it, to publicize it through whatever means you have, individually or as a commission. I would suggest would be very helpful, because this will only work if we get the word out and if people respond by actually attending the event. And there are various demographics involved in that, various considerations. So some of you may feel that that would be an area in which you could help us. But we're also open to suggestions about the program itself.
I have a question perhaps for Dana and Kelly. Would it be, and Mr. Sherman, please don't go away, this will be for you too in a second. We have the newly adopted plan for addressing homeless services that outlines many goals, right? Would it be appropriate for social services to have a table, or is this something that we should just attend? Should we tell the community what's in the plan at this event?
That would be left really to staff.
Staff's doing
Yeah,
that.
so we
Okay.
plan to present and to also speak to the new ordinance and what the new process is we've outlined.
Great.
So we'll be explaining what that is, and we will be there to answer questions.
Okay, so Dana, if you have a table there, do you want a member of the commission to come and be there at the table with you at this event? Would that be appropriate, rather than having social services have a separate table?
So it's completely up to you. And
Okay.
what my intention is to be there to answer questions about the department, and then I was going to have our homeless outreach person, our
Represent-
coordinator, be there to answer questions about outreach, since it's really very specific about what happens, who do I call, they can answer those questions.
Perfect, good.
The one thing I just want to be a little bit careful of is making sure that we stay true to the Brown Act, and so that would be the only concern I'd have about having a social services commission table. It's almost like a little mini meeting. So if you had all of you there.
Right, yeah, we have to designate up to 2 representatives.
Right, exactly.
Right.
We need to do something like that. But Dana will be there. We will also have somebody from our police department there from the dispatch portion, because a lot of people, we don't want to discourage anybody from calling 911. If somebody wants to call 911, it's there. It's public safety dispatch. That's what they're there for. But we thought it would be helpful for people to understand what happens when you call 911. How do they triage, and how do they know where to send something? Because they don't, just because you call 911 doesn't mean they send out an officer. It may, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And I think that will be helpful for people to know, and that's our law enforcement tie-in.
Understood. So it sounds like the best way for us to participate is to send up to 2 people to be there and to publicize it. Because I don't hear something that we should be presenting, right? We're not going to be telling the public, hey, this is the commission that touches these areas. You could do that through the city, right? Am I correct in gauging the level of what we can give to this?
Well, I think that those of us who have planned the event are not really looking for your help. We would welcome it if you offer ideas, but we didn't think specifically in terms of your having different thoughts about the format of the meeting than what we've had, although we're open to them if you do, but more how you could help us facilitate the success in terms of attendance and content and structure once the people get there. Kelly's point about 911, again, going back to our concept expressed in the title, who you're going to call. You call 911, do you call the police? Do you call some service directly that you already know about? Many people in the public will already have some experience with many of these organizations, or they come with, if they're motivated to come to the meeting, they may very well have problems, that ongoing experiences or anticipating problems in their family or in their work relationships, school, or whatever it might be. So all of you have a variety of experiences that could help to get the word out. And think of us as the hub of the wheel, the spokes going in all 360 degrees, or even more appropriately, I think of a sphere. And we're in the center, but we can't be going in all directions. Your help can be very good for us in reaching as large a possible segment of the general public of Davis, to let them know that this event is not as much that the event is taking place, but the content or the purpose of the event, and maybe they can fit it into their schedule to come for all part of it.
So, yes, anything you guys could do to share this with your networks, that would be fabulous. And yes, anybody who's interested in coming to the event as a commissioner or even as just a regular citizen who's interested, let me or Dana know, and we will task you with something if you're interested in that, and not if you're not. The commission was, the Police Accountability Commission didn't want the Social Services Commission to feel like we were forcing you to do something. So we'll take whatever help you want to give, but not require it if that is stated properly.
Strictly voluntary, but step right up.
Can I ask a question? Can we receive like a flyer or something electronic to share with our networks?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, where is it going out now? How are people, I knew about it because of the pre-agenda meeting.
We sent it out on our social media
Great.
networks. We shared it with the PAC members, so hopefully they're sharing it with
Their
whomever.
networks.
Their networks is
Yeah.
the easiest way to put that. And we have sent out a press release to the different press factions, so it'll pop up where those folks decide to publish it. But yes, we can absolutely send the flyer along with the other information out to you guys, and you can do with it what you see fit.
And just to be clear, the target audience would be people, unhoused individuals?
Nope, it
Or
would
service
be,
providers or everyone?
the target audience in terms of participants would be anybody in the community. So you, me, Dawn, anybody in the community who maybe is interested in how all of this works. The social service section of it, or the presenters, are going to be folks who have expertise on other services that might be available that don't necessarily require law enforcement. So dispatch is a slightly different example, but the idea being that if people know about these other services, then perhaps they are able to help connect somebody before it gets to a crisis level. But also understanding if there is a real or perceived crisis level, what happens?
It may help to know who we anticipate will be there. Like NAMI plans to come and talk about their organization. We've talked to behavioral health at the county. They're hoping to come out. Homeless outreach, like we said, this is how the process works here in Davis. Pulse Place, Downtown Streets team, because they also do outreach. So it's really, the providers will be there to say, if you call, or if you have a crisis in your own home and you just want information, or if you're out in the community, here are the places that can respond. So that's what.
Okay. Yeah, it would be good to know who are going to be the presenters if we
Yeah.
can see a list of them. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything,
Anything
any
else?
other questions?
Or is there, do we want to see now if anyone wants to commit to attending, or do we want to, or does anyone just want to assess?
I teach a graduate class on Wednesday evenings. I cannot, I'm sorry, I can't attend. It's too bad.
I'm very interested in being there. I have to check with the family schedule at home, so I'm a likely yes.
I would like to be there too.
And I'm interested as well.
But we said maximum 2, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
You
maybe,
can have three.
We'll coordinate, we'll figure it out. But you'll have a
You
show
can-
on social
you
services.
can
Well,
actually have
thank you for your
all of
hospitality, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank
As
you.
long as we're not sitting at a table together.
Whispering to each other, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so it can't be more than 2. as
You
long
could
as
all
we're-
attend, it's just we have to be a little bit careful about what you're talking about amongst each other.
Got it, okay,
Try and hit
good.
the last 15 minutes.
Okay,
All right, my turn.
take it away.
As a reminder, every 5 years, the Department of Housing and Urban Development asks entitlement organizations or organizations that get a annual grant to come up with a 5-year plan that really explains how they plan to spend their funding. How will they spend any funding that they would receive from us? Generally, they ask us to get information from the community about what the needs are, and then present back to them what we plan to do for the next 5 years. So we've done a portion of our consolidated plan by completing our homeless strategic plan. That homeless strategic plan informs the consolidated plan because it's one portion, and the consolidated plan really looks at overall what the city plans to do for at-risk and vulnerable individuals. So I just wanted to kind of let you know where we were. Excuse my coughing. But we hired a consultant to help us with this, to create the plan. There's a lot of detail, there's a lot of background that has to go into it. So the consultant's name is RDA, and back in August, we started meeting, and what we've done up to this point primarily is outreach into the community. So we published our citizens participation plan, and we let the public know that we're doing a consolidated plan, and we're looking for your input. We posted 3 forums specifically for vulnerable populations to kind of gather information from them. One of those focus groups was at Creekside, one of our affordable housing locations. The other was with the DJUSD, families from DJUSD that were low income. And then another group was from also DJUSD, but it was a primarily Spanish-speaking group called Incapacito. So we did those 3 focus groups. Once we completed the focus groups, RDA came back. They kind of synthesized all the information to help us to propose some potential goals that we might consider within the consolidated plan. Now, the goals are very prescribed by them. It has to be things that are related to decent housing. And it has to be things that are related to income qualified goals. And then it has to be how are we considering infrastructure projects and what we're doing to make the community more accessible. And so those are the buckets that we have to say that we're going to do things in. So a couple of weeks ago, we completed some internal meetings about developing what our goals would be. Now that we've done that, RDA is in the process of really writing the consolidated plan for us. So they plan to have a draft ready for us by March, April. My dates are all confused. But the first draft will come to this body first. And we'll open up a public comment period so the public knows that we're going to be, we'll have this draft. We'll do 30 days where they can kind of review it. And then once you review the draft, then you can recommend that it be forwarded to council. And then council will determine if this is ready for us to send to. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of where we are. We're getting really close to the finish line right now. And we should have something for you guys to see really soon. Let's see.
Any public comment about this? Seeing none, let's proceed.
Questions? This is just a discussion matter.
Okay, we move on to our next agenda item.
This is our.
Sure. Okay, sure, I'll start us off and then my co-chair can jump in. So since our last meeting on December 16th, after council requested that we appoint a subcommittee, we've had 2 meetings with Dana to get the lay of the land on how to set up our steering committee. So we've made a couple of decisions, but we're still very much in the early process. Our charge is to recruit members of the subcommittee, members of the steering committee, and that steering committee will be in charge of the oversight on the implementation of our existing homeless strategic plan. The members of the steering committee should be representatives of organizations that are working directly with vulnerable populations within our city that are unsheltered or underhoused, housing insecure, right? As well as those that are accessing our food pantries, etc. We want to kick off the process in a way that is as inclusive as possible to voices that have not been previously included in the process. But we have a place to begin because there was a panel. Was it referred to as a committee or a panel that wrote the plan?
It was a steering committee for the actual development.
Right. So we're starting there with that group of people and then expanding it to make sure that we have more voices involved. So Co-Chair Ringer, Dana and I have started out with what are our design principles. We have a draft invitation letter and we've started the process of educating ourselves by reaching out to representatives of these organizations to gauge interest and get advice about how the steering committee should be structured and the cadence, what are the logistics for inside of the meetings, etc. We want to start soon because the plan is already in effect. So we're aiming to send out invitations within the next 2 weeks. And so at our next meeting, we'll hope to have an update for you, including who the members of the steering committee are. So we welcome your input, your recommendations about who we should be talking to, and I think our work has just begun. Am I missing anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, some of the other things we've been talking about, as you want to establish like a very clear charter for the group before the establishment of the steering committee, but likely, that's not set in stone once the committee is established. Like that's something that can be amendable by the committee itself. We don't want to decide something ourselves without our subcommittee that is, forever true for the committee once it's established and is able to, develop its own rules and opinions on things. We're looking at, we're drafting objectives for the group as well, I'm reaching out and trying to understand best practices around including voices from people with lived experience in the subcommittee itself. So I had one call last week on best to do that or feasibility of that and accommodations and mechanisms around that. I think that's it.
Dana, is there anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
Okay,
to be getting started.
good. Any questions or guidance from the commission?
Thank you for that report.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you for your work.
Sounds like an interesting project.
All right, quick update on liaison reports. Again, we have yet to assign liaisons to our agencies for 24-25 because we are still waiting for HUD to approve our funding. So as soon as we have that taken care of, then we will be able to get our agencies under contract because they're still waiting for contracts. And then get moving so that they can start getting funding out the door, and then we can assign you guys. You guys can determine who you want to be assigned to, so you can report back on the agencies that are approved. Yes.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Oh, wait,
Oh, sorry.
public comments.
Oh, of course.
Public comment?
If HUD takes a very long time, I think we all agreed, if I can speak for what I recall from the group, that the liaison meetings were incredibly informative for our work, and that we enjoyed having those assignments to go and bring back reports. So if HUD takes a very long time, could we use our existing list in a good faith manner? Because I don't think it would be a loss of information or a waste of time if we continue with those liaison appointments.
We can absolutely do that. And again, we can see the agencies that we funded, or if there are other agencies that you're interested in, and you'd like to get some information about them and bring it back, you're welcome to do that too. So if you like, next month, I'll bring up a chart, and show some of the Davis agencies that are in town, and I'll star the ones that we funded previously, and then some of the others, and you guys can pick some.
Yeah, that sounds good, thank you.
Okay, long range calendar. So, as of, this is always makes me really nervous. Here we go. So this is what our long range calendar looked like. I changed it a little bit. So we're on a annual calendar instead of trying to do the fiscal one for right now. But it gives us an opportunity every month to determine what kinds of things we'd like to discuss. So we can talk about informational items, we'll add on here things that we have to vote on. Sometimes those are usually kind of action items, any committees that we establish, and any liaison updates, so we can see per month kind of what it is that we want to do. So I set this up. There are a couple, I've got us at a August recess. I think we did that last year. I can't remember if we did August or July.
I think we met in August, we had a special meeting in August.
You had a special meeting in August, that's right.
It was a
So,
while, we went a while without meeting.
yeah, so I would leave it to you guys if you want to think about what month you'd like to recess. We typically work on a fiscal year, so the end of our program year is June 30th, and we start a new fiscal year in July. So, gives you a chance to start fresh. Some of the things that will be coming your way, we will be doing, we would like to start our notice of funding opportunity period in September, so we can let the agencies know we'll be looking at 25-26. We usually do a technical assistance workshop around that time, and then we have applications we do in December. And then we hope that by March, we'll have our awards or recommendations from you guys that we will then send to council, who will say, yes, these are the agencies that we propose to fund and we move forward. So, again, I'll bring this up again next month, and then we can start plugging in some of the liaison reports, so we know who wants to do what in what month, so you can think about that. And then if there are any particular subjects or things that you would like more information about, think about that too, and we can see if we can add them as informational items for upcoming months. Okay. Yay. All right, so that is the report for our long-range calendar. I don't think I had anything more for that. Any comments, questions, concerns?
No.
Okay. Next, communications, there's an opportunity for the commissioners, if they have any.
Does anyone have any community events or other announcements that they want to bring up? No?
All right. We, at this point, from my understanding, we've got 3 properties that have recently come up for sale, through our, affordable housing program. So, we are working to get, those realtors to make sure they understand that, what the terms are for a sale. Primarily that if they're reserved for a specific income bracket, how long they have to promote the availability of the property, and then when the seller can potentially put it on the market. So 3 properties so far. Nothing else to report for affordable housing. I do want to give a couple of updates on social services. We recently had an event. Downtown Streets team and Davis Picks It Up partnered to do a litter pickup on around 1st Street and A through F Street. They had 62 volunteers show up to kind of work together to just clean up the downtown. So it was really exciting. It was a lot of fun, and folks were very happy to be able to partner with Downtown Streets team and get a chance to see some of our participants. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And then I wanted to give you a brief update. So I was approached by a couple of faith-based advocates who are currently looking at considering how their congregations can help in the unhoused community. Some are looking at safe park. They've asked about safe camping. And so they asked what they could do. So I wrote a quick 1-page suggestion to them to consider if they would like to think about starting with safe harbor and all the way up to potentially safe stay. So essentially, by starting with safe harbor, if they wanted to start small and really open when there's extreme weather, it's really hot, it's really cold, we're going to open our congregation and let people cool off or get warm. They could start with something like that. If that worked for them, then they could see what it could potentially look like to offer a safe park, and then all the way up to potentially safe camping. Now, these are just things that we've suggested from work, but what we let the advocates know is that in order to move forward with any of this, they should get the consent from their faith leader, and they need consent from their boards to say, we've looked at these models, this is what we are considering we might be able to do, and how can we get started? If the congregations decide to move forward to do some of these things, what the city is offering to do is to provide them training. So this will be an opportunity for some of the community navigator programs that we've heard about in the past. This is an opportunity to get people trained on what it would take to offer navigation at the various congregations. So we've got an outside consultant that specializes in trauma-informed care, managing behaviors, setting boundaries. They would come out and do that training for the organizations. Once they completed the training, then we would set them up with like a mini internship at Paul's Place and at the Respite Center, where people can actually, with guidance from the staff, see what it's like to work with these populations the things that they're trying to manage, and then what does a referral process look like. So, at this point, the one pager is with a couple of advocates that have said that they would take these back to their congregations. They're working together to have conversations. I've offered to put them in touch with a couple of other congregations and other locations that are currently doing various forms of safe stay and safe harbor and safe park, so that they can hear from them what it takes to do that, what the costs are, the impacts to the congregation, impacts to insurance, all of that. So right now, this is in their court, and we'll see if there's interest, and if we see that there's interest, then I'll go to council and ask if there's funding available for us to go ahead and offer the training. So that's my report, and that's what I've got to announce.
Is there public comment on this? Any questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's a very cool idea. It's very exciting. I wonder, in addition to training, yeah, sorry, I can't get my contact. In addition to training, I assume one of the needs and one of the huge value adds that's not really resource intensive at all for your department would be the one of like not facilitating referrals, but if a faith-based establishment chooses to become a safe harbor site, connecting them with other referral mechanisms so that awareness of that safe harbor site is, widespread, and people can refer individuals who are interested in that.
That's exactly what we would do.
Okay.
We already have kind of a network of providers in town
Okay.
that are doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
We would give them the opportunity to connect to that network.
Great. Okay. Perfect. It's really, it's very impressive. I like this idea initiative.
Yeah, it's a positive, like a positive innovation, compared to a lot of the news we've been hearing about it, so it's nice to see a solution being proposed.
I'm delighted to see this be offered, because, we have such a struggle right now with where people can go, right? We have a gap in shelter, and now with the encampment ordinance, we also have a gap for the folks who were previously able to sleep in their cars. That's no longer allowed, right? So having safe places to park, in addition to the safe harbor, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is a great development, and I'm impressed by the partnership represented, so that's great too. I'm wondering about whether or not the safe harbor with the emergency distinction of bad weather, does that have to follow the county's rules of what counts as bad weather, or are they allowed to set that themselves?
So we would follow the county's kind of parameters around it, because the state kind of tells us when we will open a facility and what the rules would be around that. Congregations could have more flexibility. They can determine, because it's their property, they can determine when and how they like to open.
That's great, because I know that that's a limitation right now, when you have to have 3 very hot days before it's an emergency, but that, when you're a person with a body out in the weather, that's not how it works. So that's great. I was really curious about that. Okay, and then for the safe parking, the safe stay, the city would be providing funds only around the training for the outside consultant, right? Okay, so any additional resources to make that safe would be on the congregations?
Yes, it would be. What we would do is, if there are opportunities for them to pursue funding through grants or through foundations or any other funding sources, we'd make sure that they were aware of that so they could be applying. For example, in West Sacramento, there's an organization called the Mercy Coalition, and they run the Recovery Cafe. And recovery cafes are national, and they are all faith-based. And they have a training program and a grant program for congregations that want to consider doing something along those lines. So we offered to make sure that we put them in touch with Mercy Coalition in West Sacramento so that they can learn more about how they started, why they started, what they're running into, because they started with their recovery cafe was in a church that was underutilized, and so they started opening to allow people to come in and go to like AA programs or recovery programs. And eventually they opened an actual cafe where people that were in those programs were running the cafe, and then they had all these, they started these meetings. And now they're looking at providing safe parking. They're looking at their land and thinking about providing safe camp. So they're kind of further along the way and really good examples of understanding what it takes to do this, because it's quite an undertaking and there's a lot to consider. And I know many of our organizations are organizations that work with the Interfaith Rotating Winter Shelter, but that's been many years and things have changed a lot. So that's why we want to make sure that they, if they consider doing this, they go into it with their eyes wide open and with some support. But by decoupling it from the city, they have more flexibility to do a lot of things that the city would not be able to do. So that's why we're asking them to talk to their leadership.
Is it possible for any other nonprofits to join this circle, or does it have to be faith-based?
We proposed it to the faith-based because they reached out to us.
Right.
But we can always, I can let you know who's kind of pulling that coalition together, and if you'd like to, reach out to them and start on that journey too, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely welcome.
I just wonder if they have a network of volunteers and someone else has land and a place that wants to do it. Okay.
Always something that could be considered.
Interesting.
But like I said, I'm asking that because this is not, the city isn't saying, go do this and we will underwrite it. What we're saying is, we'd like you to, it's something you can consider because you've asked about your concern in the community. This is a way to address it. But it really is the congregation's decision because it's their land, it's their congregation, and it's their houses of worship. And there's a lot, it's a lot. A lot.
Can I ask how many organizations or how many churches or?
So, that's a good question. So we've sent it to some of the advocacy organizations that we know, and they said that they would reach out to the congregation. So Interfaith Housing Justice is looking at this, Grace in Action is looking at it, Heart of Davis is looking at it, and I know that there are a couple of congregations that are kind of coming together to try and form a faith-based coalition. So they're talking about it. So they're talking to each other. And I just ask once they've made decisions to reach back out.
But I also do have a question. What if there are non-faith-based organizations that can contribute to this?
Yeah, what I would do is put them in touch with the various organizations that have it and reach out, and you guys can get research and get information all at the same time. And if you like, it's labeled faith-based, but I can send it if there are CBOs that are interested. I can send the model, this one-page model to them, and they can consider.
I don't necessarily know of any CBOs per se that are interested. I'm just thinking theoretically.
Right.
I think part of the reason that we looked at the faith-based community is because many of them have buildings, parking lots, and land. So that's why we reached out to them first. And these are things that they've been thinking about. So that's why we started there.
That makes sense.
You have a question?
Yeah, another question. Related to the camping ordinance that passed recently, an update to it.
I'm sorry, I haven't done this back here.
I'm just reminding myself of some of the details of that ordinance and specifically it banned camping on public and private property in the city. So how does that?
Yeah.
It seems like there might be a conflict with this. It's private property, the church's property, but we're banning camping on private property. So like, what's the interplay there like?
So we've invited the chief to kind of work with us. There are ways that if you are, if we vetted the organization, we know what it is you're planning to do. There are ways that we can encourage folks to go ahead and, we can give them a permit to basically operate what they want.
Like a campground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, there is a permit process that can happen, and the chief has said that we would work through that permitting process. It'll probably end up somewhere in, parks, because they're used to doing that. But he did say that he is open to this idea
Okay,
and open to working with them.
cool.
So once we get there, we'll figure it out. Okay, any other questions? I will send this to you, so if you see folks, you can give it to them. All right. And that's it. Just a reminder, we'll be back here next month.
Oh,
The meeting
Yes.
is adjourned at
Yes. Mhm.
8:35 PM,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, back here next month,
the
because,
24th.
because on the 24th, because there's a President's Day holiday, so.
Yeah, so back here. Don't go to the meeting.
I'll remind everyone.